Uh-huh.
What's your favorite scary movie?
I don't know.
You have to have a favorite. What comes to mind?
You're listening to Scream with Ryan C. Showers, the podcast for Scream fans just like you. Join Ryan every week as he takes a deep dive into the horror film series that defined the 90s and redefined the genre. Scream with Ryan C. Showers is your source for scene and quote analysis, character dissections, and the latest news about upcoming installments of the Scary Movie franchise.
I hear you like horror movies, Kirby, but do you like them as much as him?
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Scream with Ryan C. Showers podcast, where the film critic meets the Scream fan twice a week, every Tuesday and Friday. I'm your host, Ryan C. Showers. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. Now, before I go any further, I need to thank the producers of Scream with Ryan C. Showers. They include Ashley Summers from the Squirrel and Spud Shop. She and I host a Scream game every Wednesday on Instagram, so please check that out. I also need to thank TJ Jones, who comes from the Box Office Buds podcast. He is responsible for all of the graphic design of Scream with Ryan C. Showers in terms of new episode cards on social media promotion. So thank you so much to TJ for all he does. I also need to thank contributors Mark Karim, Mark Vieira, and Joey Velisi. Joey Velisi is the guy who writes the scripts for Scream with Ryan C. Showers. Episode 112, we wrote a Scream 7 script, which I read out loud, about the end of the Carpenter sisters storyline. And then the sequel to that was called Screams. It was centered around the legacy of Gail Weathers. That's episode 155. And Joey is currently working on the final Scream, which this is a product that is going to examine the relationship, the marriage of Mark and Sydney. Unlike the real Scream 7, this will feature Mark Kincaid as Sydney's husband, and she won't have a teenage daughter. Both of her daughters will be young, so it'll be much different than the real Scream 7 we're going to get. But that is going to be coming to the podcast late summer, early fall, so please tune in for that. I need to thank everybody over at Patreon. Thank you to everybody who subscribes to the Patreon at any and every tier. I'm an independent entity, so any bit of support that comes into the Patreon goes back into the podcast. Joining the Patreon gets you ad-free and early access to every episode, as well as the opportunity to join the community of the show. We have group chats across social media. In particular, Instagram is really the hub of the podcast community. More importantly, joining the Patreon is the vessel in which you would use to come onto the podcast, either in a one-on-one situation with me or a small panel. In addition, there's a guaranteed invite every month to a big group Zoom recording about a Scream topic. An exciting feature of the podcast is the audio commentary episodes. Every Scream fan knows what it was like listening to Wes Craven do the audio commentaries for the original trilogy and Scream 4, with Marianne Maddalena and Kevin Williamson and Patrick Lussier. And what I'm trying to do for my Patreon subscribers is I am going to be performing an audio commentary of a Scream or a Scream-related movie, one per month, every month. And my goal is to try to approach these as I'm doing deep analytical analysis about the characters, about the themes, about just general reaction. So it's something that I'm really proud of and I hope continues to be a cherished part of the podcast. So the commentary is available as a normal podcast episode for anybody to listen to like they would any other podcast, but it will also be available as a video watch along. So everybody, please go over to Patreon, subscribe to Scream with RCS. I would be eternally grateful. So I need to go through and thank everybody over at Patreon who is subscribed as a stab investor or a daddy/mama Ghostface. So the daddy/mama Ghostface of the Patreon are Carrie Tenney, Brett Janovich, Corey Wilson, and Stevie Shears. The stab investors include Allie, Mark Karim, Tamika Jones, David D., Garrison Nichols, Gustavo Mora, Jess Mariano, Joey Nobarini, aka The Vault, Josh Calamari, Josh Carr, Scream Queens podcast, both Josh and Justine, The Horror Project podcast, Justin Weir, Kevin Abner, Mark Vieira, PWO5, aka Philip Douglas, Quentin Harrison, and Sam Levy. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Scream with Ryan C. Showers. I'm your host, Ryan C. Showers. Thank you for joining me for the second ever audio commentary by Ryan C. Showers. So this is a new feature I've been introducing as a bonus for Patreon subscribers. It's something that I kind of want. It's not something I know that's going to be like an instant gratification success, but I think like over time, long after like this podcast is over, in 10 years or so, people will remember the fact that Ryan C. Showers has audio commentaries on his podcast and his Patreon, and I want that to be part of my legacy, is like doing things like this, because this podcast is a celebration of the Scream films, of course, but also like what I deem the Scream era of movies, which is like the late 90s, early 2000s. But now I guess it's like also the 2011s and the the 2020s, for lack of a better phrase. But part of the early 90s and early 2000s, I'm sorry, the late 90s and early 2000s was the audio commentary, where filmmakers would sit in front of their movie and record themselves kind of analyzing or giving insight into the filmmaking decisions and the filmmaking process. So that is what a lot of us horror fans in particular watch these and cherish these. So my goal is to kind of give my version of that of the audio commentaries. So so first we did The Craft last month, and I'm going to talk about The Craft a little bit while we go through Final Destination. Not like the only link that these two have is me, but also like it's my philosophy that like The Craft was the movie the horror team movie, right, that came before Scream, in 1996. It came out in May 1996. Versus Final Destination is like the movie after Scream. It came out in March of 2000. So after Scream 3 had ended. So these two movies kind of bookend the culture of the original trilogy. And for me, going from like studying The Craft to Final Destination was something kind of wild. But I think it's so interesting how much the culture and the media and the types of stories that were told changed from 1996 to 2000 while the original trilogy was active and ongoing. So that's why we did Final Destination. So this is an original DVD. It's like an infrared kind of like cover with all the colors of the rainbow. But it's so cool. I'm just going to like open it up real quick just to show everybody. So if you are listening on Patreon, there's a video that will also be available that is going to be produced by my friend TJ. Thank you, TJ, for pushing me to do this with, so I bought a special microphone for it today, but it kind of folds out. You get like the first fold out with all the scenes, but then you get a second fold out with like the special features, cool pictures. I miss the way DVDs used to be. I miss physical media. Like, even though I don't even love this movie that much, like I love this DVD. I love having this DVD. It's part of, me as a fan of Final Destination. So, all right, well, let's do it. I'm not, so, okay, let's get to it. Okay. So by the time you're listening to this, many of you will have probably seen Final Destination Bloodlines, the 6th movie. I have not. I have only seen 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So, I'm not going to be biased with any recency, adrenaline of Final Destination 6. So let's do it. Okay. So I'm going to give a very obvious countdown here so that people know that I'm starting the movie and you can also press play. So here's what I would advise. Like if you're watching the movie along with me at home and listening to the audio over top or even just the video, like you want to have already press played and like, you want the time clock to be 0000. So before before any title cards, before the studio, before anything like that. So before the studio name, I mean. So okay. So I'm at 000, and it's just so funny because the way that this movie plays with numbers, right? So okay, let's do it. So we're going to count down. So press play. You should be at 000 on your time clock. And let's do it. So 3, 2, 1, press play. Okay, let's do it. All right, we are rocking and rolling here. So yeah, New Line Cinema. Yeah. Interesting. I heard on the audio commentary with the filmmakers on the DVD Blu-ray that the big inspiration for Final Destination, or the big way that they tried to pitch to New Line Cinema, was through A Nightmare on Elm Street, which I find interesting, right? Because Wes Craven, the tie-in. So here we are. Here's the title card. So yeah, Final Destination, the rain in the background. So one of the motifs in Final Destination that I really like is the wind. Like right before a big death scene happens or before death starts to intervene, we get the wind. And like The Craft, this movie is playing with elements of nature in a way, and we're seeing this in the opening. We have water, wind, air, right? Because right now we're seeing the fan. But the cool thing about Final Destination, and why I think people like this franchise so much, is being able to go back and see not only Death's design and the way that the characters slip up, but also like for instance and here's his passport. That's an obvious big thing, and here's the Flight 180 airplane ticket. So. But no, like the opening credits, for instance, like, we're flashing through all these things that are death of a salesman behind the Tour of France. Wow, that's something. But the opening credits, they are summarizing a lot of what will come. It foreshadows a lot of the characters' deaths, and we don't know it. So that's part of the fun of going back to Final Destination. So I'm going to say something controversial. I don't think that Final Destination is like the greatest movie series to rewatch. For instance, like I think you can rewatch Scream until you're blue in the face. I've literally seen the Scream movies like each like by themselves 1,000 times. Maybe not Scream 5 and 6, but like definitely the original 3, maybe 4. I've seen so many times. So yeah, but so yeah, already like it's just interesting, like, just from a Ryan C. Showers perspective, to judge Final Destination, the opening credits versus the Craft opening credits. Like Final Destination is really taking its time here, and the Craft has this really awesome like 90s song, and we're in the sky, and it's like boom, 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 and Final Destination is like slow. But I like this. I like opening credits. Like I took them for granted when I was younger. I used to fast forward through them, and now they really help set the mood and like kind of give a message about what's to come in the movie. So yeah, but already we're here. We have gone from 1996 to the year 2000. Scream has come and gone. Neve Campbell come and gone. Sidney Prescott, she was traumatized and then she found peace. Gale and Dewey, they met 1996, hated each other in Scream 2 in 1997. Now they got engaged, and now we're here. James Wan is directing the Final Destination. Final Destination, not the Final Destination. Not to confuse anybody with the amazing fourth one. So already here you can see the influence of Scream. Like look at the movie posters on the wall of Alex's bedroom. So JFK, interesting. Not to be too on the nose about cultural events of stuff going on right now, but like thank God this isn't Newark, right? It's funny because I actually have a flight in Newark in a couple of months, and like Newark is going through some shit. So I mean, like I would not feel comfortable flying in Newark right now, so they need to get their shit together. So anyways, look how young Devon Sawa looks. Oh my gosh. So I remember when I first saw Final Destination back in probably like 2007 2008. I knew that it had come out after Scream, and that it was the thing that people moved on to after Scream ended with Scream 3, before Scary Movie. So like, but I mean, like, Scary Movie kind of captured the Scream audience and like the people who would have been into Scream before. And we're going to do Scary Movie next month. So again, we're just like bringing it forward, right? So in this scene actually I learned that Devon Sawa was actually dead ass asleep for 4 hours. And the crew couldn't wake him up. He was just out, which I think is interesting. See, here we have the wind. It's coming in. Death is kind of setting its design up. Like it's like we're getting the hint that something is not right. That Death is starting its thing. But I first saw Final Destination after Scream, because I knew that for instance, Final Destination won Best Horror Movie at the Saturn Awards in the same year as Scream 3. And for me, I'm offended, right? But also, I knew that Final Destination was popular in horror at the time. Ooh, this is one of the best shots in the movie. We go from 1 a.m. and like the light kind of flickers. The middle light goes from a 0 to an 8, and then we fade into Flight 180 on the board at the airport. Because this is the flight number. This is what the whole movie centered around, is this airplane flight. We love that. Hitchcock. So Sean William Scott plays a character called Hitchcock. This is after American Pie. This is post American Pie. Sean William Scott, goofball. I love the name. I love the reference, but he's such a goofy character. I'm going to say something very controversial, which is I actually don't love the cast ensemble in Final Destination. I think it's fine. It's funny because like you look at this and like there are very recognizable people and faces. Devon Sawa, Kerr Smith from Dawson's Creek, right? Ali Larter, who went on to be a big star. And yet, I kind of prefer the cast ensemble in Final Destination 2, and 3, and 5. I don't know. So, But yeah, whenever I first saw Final Destination, I thought it was so cool. Like the movie completely worked for me. I was like in it. I thought like this was I got the hype and I got the buzz. And since then, since that first viewing, like back in 2007, 2008, it has never really held up from that. I remember trying to rewatch it maybe a couple of years later, and it wasn't like I didn't have the same kind of euphoric feeling, right? Or at least I saw the flaws. There was something in the air at the time where Final Destination really clicked. So there's Ali Larter. She is playing Clear Rivers. Horrible name. Oh, let's just say horrible name. Why is it Clear? It's literally Clear instead of Claire. Most people think it's Claire. That's the crazy thing. So yeah, what a creep. The teacher is pretty though. She's actually the wife of one of the writers, which I think is interesting. So. Okay, so I have to say this first act of this first movie is amazing. Like the camera work right here, the way that it kind of pans into Devin and kind of like goes around his face, like it sets the mood, and you have like the clicking of like the boards changing behind him. Like he knows that something's off. I think that the movie does such a good job at conveying his experience here at the airport as we get going. And I think like I can't imagine being like, and then we get Final Destination, right? We get the name right there. Wes Craven never really did that with Scream. He never put like Scream like on the screen in a way, so that's funny. Final Destination is outdoing Scream in a meta way. So I have to say, Devin Sawa. So I wore my Final Boy shirt for this recording. If you're watching on Patreon, you can see, but if you're not, you can just take my word for it. So this was made by Adam Bushi, Small Town Weirdo. And the reason I wore it is because we have, most of the movies are probably that I'm going to do for the audio commentaries are going to have a final girl. This is probably the only movie I'm ever going to do, but maybe Evil Dead. I like Evil Dead. I like Bruce Campbell, but like, this is probably the only movie I'm ever going to do where I'm going to have a final boy. So I was like, I got to wear this shirt. Plus I don't have a Final Destination shirt, so it just worked out. It was either this or a Sarah Michelle Gellar shirt, because last month was her birthday. So interesting though, Claire is Clear. Oh God, I'm going to call her Claire. It's like Mean Girls. Yeah, I'm going to call you Caddy. Claire is the only one who is reading. She's distracted. Everyone else is kind of like into themselves, into like, and that's kind of like, doing the teenage thing, but she's not. She's almost like an empath. She's doing something. So Gate 46, and I think that there are 46 people that are supposed to be on the plane, and then 6 of them survive. Is that right? Yeah, I think that's something right. But again, like, I kind of like his friend. I'm not gonna lie. He's weird, but I like him. Brendan Fear, is that his name? I don't know. Okay. Okay, so my friend Ashley, my producer Ashley, she gave me notes, her notes of Final Destination as she watched, because I don't think she's like the greatest fan either. I think she likes it, but right here's a weird shot. Like I've never seen two men taking a shit together. Weird, right? Weird. Ashley literally wrote, "Do boys shit together?" Also, but here's a great cool camera angle, right? We start out seeing both of them above, and then we kind of go down into Devin's stall. We go around him, and we're face front, and he's, while he is suspicious, while he's in suspense, while he's intuitively feeling something, that's just not right, So, I mean, you can't fault the movie for its camera work, and I actually think the editing in this movie is very strong. I like the score. It's a nicely constructed movie. It's also very much a movie of its time. Like, it feels like. So again, here, like, Final Destination is kind of known for like these like continuous events happening, like the way that the ticket tour, the way that the footsteps are happening, the walking here, So like, I mean, like, it's very much like they compartmentalize each action that characters make that lead to their death. Also, another great shot, Devin kind of looking out into the airport, and we see like the rain covered window. So I want to just like take a moment. I think this movie is kind of flawed. I'm not like a huge fan of the second half of this movie, especially like the last act. I think the last act is rough. But see again, this is such great shit. Like Devin like looking down into the crack. Like who hasn't done that when they're going on an airplane to like kind of like just as you're going from the tarmac to board the plane, like literally step onto the plane, like And then again, Devin is so sensitive to every single little thing that's happening around him, like each individual kind of passenger and like whatever their particular issue is, whether it's a baby, whether it's someone who is mentally challenged, like there is such he's noticing everything. It's like everything is hitting him extra hard. So here he goes. He's in the back of the plane, and at this point, I can't imagine being a viewer in the year 2000 going to see this movie and not knowing the twist and not knowing like what the gimmick of Final Destination is, right? The gimmick of Final Destination is, that there's going to be this event that it's not happening in reality, but it could have happened, and the characters escape it. So I can't imagine being somebody who's sitting here, like completely invested, completely identifying with everything what's going on with Devon Sawa here, and then seeing the scene play out before it switches back, So, because this is where it switches. This is where he wakes up from his like little dream or premonition or whatever it is. So, So if you know Final Destination, you know that like Devin moving seats is part of Death's design and like how he is cheating Death or like kind of messing up the plan. And again, like each little individual thing, Devin like playing with the air conditioner up front, him untwisting the tray on the back of the chair. Like that's the thing about Final Destination that I think you really need to have to make it work. And why I'm kind of concerned about the new movie is like for your big disaster at the opening, you must have something that most people can identify with, that would cause most people to have anxiety and be afraid genuinely. And that is this movie. And I think like the second best version of this is the roller coaster in the third movie. Like, most of us know what it's like to be on an airplane and to go through these anxieties and kind of like have these curiosities about the plane and like just a fear of, you're not in control of your own body, your own person, someone else's. Like you're literally defying nature in a way, going up and flying, right? So, and if you live in the United States, that since January of 2025, we've had a lot of airplane like accidents happen, which is scary. All right. So giving more credence to this. Okay. See, I think this opening is so well directed. Like even just like the hand going to the seat, like the director, James Wong, he does such a good job at making the viewer feel like Devon Sawa, like making us feel everything that Devon's feeling. Without that, like this would not be nearly as effective. So I have to give Devon credit too. I actually think like this is like one of the greater Final Boy performances. I know he's not a Final Boy technically. I mean he is because he does survive, I guess, but like he's not in the sequels. But see, the worst has happened. Everything it goes crazy. Just as like a filmmaking point of view, like I can't imagine having to make this scene. Like the amount of planning and choreography and like the amount of coverage you would need just as film to get these action moments. Whenever it's happening, whenever the explosion and like the all the turbulence with the plane is going on, it happens so fast when they're out, when they're back at the airport watching it from afar versus when you're living and experiencing it right now. It just feels like it's going on forever and ever and ever. And there's the teacher. Yeah. And I think we're about to submerge into the fire. Okay, yeah. And there it is. So blood, fire. Okay, now Devin's dead. It's interesting because Ali Larter, not this is a spoiler, I guess, for people who haven't seen Final Destination 2, but people know this. I mean, I don't care. Sorry, Ash. My producer Ash is like, never give spoilers. What do you think? I'm like, this movie's been out for 25 years. Ali Larter, she dies in the second film. She has a good part in the second film. She comes in like 30 minutes in, and then she's in it the rest of the movie until the very end, and she dies by fire. And the way that the fire kind of consumed Devin's head right there, it's actually very similar to how Claire dies in the second movie, where at the end there's a big explosion at the hospital and she gets submerged in fire. So I think that was absolutely intentional, like kind of like going full circle with Claire. She should have died on Flight 180. She didn't. A lot of people died by fire. Now she's dying by fire in the second one. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this public preview of the commentary for this month. If you would like to listen to the complete audio commentary for the movie, please head on over to Patreon, Scream with RCS, subscribe at any tier to get the audio for this movie, for the audio commentary. Or if you subscribe at a higher tier, tier 2 or above, you can get the video for me performing the commentary while watching the movie. So again, everybody, thank you so much for supporting the podcast.